On February 7th, 2010, Colonel David Russell Williams, the base commander of CFB Trenton, the man who had piloted Prime Ministers, royalty, and heads of state, walked into an Ottawa police station for what he believed was a routine interview.
You know there's only one option. What other option is there?
What's the option?
Well, I don't think you want the cold-blooded psychopath option.
He was 46 years old. He had a 23-year military career behind him. He was respected, decorated, admired. 4.5 hours later, he began to confess. He confessed to dozens of break-ins that investigators ultimately linked to 82 break-ins and attempted break-ins. The theft of women's and girls' underwear from homes across eastern Ontario. A secret life that had begun 3 years earlier with the bedroom of a 12-year-old child. He confessed to 2 sexual assaults, and then he confessed to 2 murders. By the time he was finished, he had detailed the rapes and killings of Corporal Marie-France Comeau, a woman under his command at CFB Trenton, and Jessica Lloyd, a 27-year-old woman from Belleville whom he had watched through a window while she ran on a treadmill. He had photographed and videotaped many of his crimes. He had kept it all, meticulously catalogued, in a file system on his computer. Thousands of images, hours of footage, the record of his own depravity preserved like a trophy collection. This is the case of Colonel Russell Williams, and this is the open file. David Russell Williams was born in Bromsgrove, England, in 1963. His family immigrated to Canada when he was 5, settling in Chalk River, Ontario, a small town built around a nuclear research laboratory. His parents divorced when he was 6. His mother remarried. The family moved, and moved again. Toronto, then Scarborough, then South Korea, then back to Toronto. Williams attended Upper Canada College, one of the country's most prestigious private schools. As a boarding student, he delivered newspapers. He learned piano. He was named a prefect in his final year. He studied economics and political science at the University of Toronto, the same campus where Paul Bernardo, another name that would become infamous in Canadian criminal history, was 2 years ahead of him. After graduating in 1986, Williams joined the Canadian Forces. He earned his wings in 1990. He became an instructor. He rose. By the mid-1990s, Williams was flying the CC-144 Challenger, a VIP transport jet for 412 Transport Squadron in Ottawa. His passengers included prime ministers, governors general, and foreign heads of state. He flew Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. He was trusted with the most important people in the country, and he was trusted because he had earned it, or appeared to have earned it. His record was spotless. His bearing was impeccable. He was the kind of officer who inspired confidence, the kind of man you wanted in the cockpit when the stakes were high. In 2004, Williams was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel and given command of 437 Transport Squadron at CFB Trenton. He served a tour commanding Camp Mirage, the secretive Canadian logistics base in the United Arab Emirates that supported operations in Afghanistan. In January 2009, he was promoted to full colonel, and on July 15th, 2009, he was sworn in as the wing commander of CFB Trenton, the busiest airbase in Canada, the hub through which every fallen Canadian soldier returned home from Afghanistan, their coffins carried along the Highway of Heroes to Toronto. Williams was the man who received those coffins. He was the face of the military's dignity and grief. He wrote letters of condolence to families. He stood at attention as hearses passed. He embodied everything the Canadian forces wanted the country to see: discipline, honor, service. And on the night of November 16th, 2009, 4 months after he took command, he was crouching behind the furnace in the basement of a woman who worked for him, holding a red flashlight and a roll of duct tape, waiting for her to fall asleep. Marie-France Comeau was 37 years old. She was a corporal at CFB Trenton, a military traffic technician. She worked for the man who would kill her. She lived alone in Brighton, Ontario, with 2 cats. She had just returned from a trip. She had no reason to think she was in danger. On November 16th, 2009, Russell Williams broke into Comeau's home through a basement window. He determined she appeared to live alone. He left, and then he returned days later and hid in the basement. He brought a bag. Inside it, a camera, a flashlight, duct tape, and long plastic zip ties. Comeau did not go to bed that night. She came downstairs looking for one of her cats. According to Williams' later confession, the cat appeared to notice him first. It was standing near the furnace, staring at the masked intruder. And then Comeau saw him too. She screamed. She called him a bastard. She fought. Williams later admitted striking her multiple times in the head with his flashlight. She fell, semi-conscious, bleeding heavily. He tied her to a metal support pole with clothing he found in the basement. He covered her mouth with duct tape, and then, with military precision, he secured the house. He broke a key in the front door to prevent anyone from entering. He pinned a blanket to Comeau's curtainless bedroom window with kitchen knives. He dragged her upstairs, and for more than 3 hours, he sexually assaulted her. He videotaped all of it. He photographed all of it. At one point, Comeau pleaded with him. She said, "I want to live so badly." She said, "Give me a chance. I'll be so good. Please." She said, "You're going to kill me, aren't you? I don't want to die. I don't deserve to die. I have been good." Williams covered her nose and mouth with duct tape. He watched her suffocate. He photographed her body twice after she was dead. He took her underwear. He cleaned the crime scene with bleach. He placed her body on the bed. And then he drove to Ottawa to attend a meeting. Her body was found on November 25th by her boyfriend. 1 week after the murder, in his capacity as base commander of CFB Trenton, Russell Williams sent a letter of condolence to Marie-France Comeau's father, a military veteran himself. The letter expressed sorrow for the family's loss. It was signed by the man who had killed her. Jessica Elizabeth Lloyd was 27 years old. She lived alone in a house outside Belleville, Ontario. She worked. She had friends. She had a family, a mother, Roxanne, and a brother, Andy, who loved her. She was, by every description, the kind of person who lit up a room, who drew people toward her, who had no reason to suspect that anyone wished her harm. On January 28, 2010, Jessica sent a text message to a family friend at 10:36 p.m. The next day, she did not show up for work. Her family called the police. It was, they said, completely out of character for her to be out of contact. What had happened was this. Russell Williams had seen Jessica through her window, running on a treadmill, visible from the road. He had been driving by, and he had noticed her. That was all it took. On the night of January 28th, Williams entered Jessica's home. He waited in the backyard until she went to sleep, and then he went inside. He bound her with rope. He placed duct tape over her face. He forced her to model her own underwear while he photographed her. He was in the house for hours. 3 witnesses who passed by that night saw an SUV parked there for several hours and did not think to report it until after she was missing. Then Williams forced Jessica into his vehicle. He blindfolded her. He drove her to his cottage on Cozy Cove Lane in Tweed. He told her repeatedly that if she cooperated, he would let her go. At the cottage, he continued the assault. He made her shower. He photographed her. At one point, Jessica had a seizure, her body convulsing, her voice cracking as she begged to be taken to a hospital. Williams videotaped it. And then, on the video he made of his own crime, Jessica Lloyd said the words that would break open the courtroom when they were read aloud. "I don't want to die, please." And then, "If I die, will you make sure my mom knows that I love her?" Williams killed her by striking her in the head with his flashlight and then strangling her with a rope. He left her body in his garage. The next day, he flew to California on military business. He returned days later and dumped her body in a field on Cary Road in Tweed, bound with duct tape, abandoned in the brush, while he went back to commanding the largest airbase in Canada. The investigation into Jessica Lloyd's disappearance produced 2 crucial pieces of physical evidence: tire tracks and boot prints in the snow outside her home. The tire tracks were distinctive. Experts from the Ministry of Transport and the RCMP analyzed them. They determined the tracks had been made by one of 3 vehicle types, fitted with Toyo Country HT tires. The boot prints were equally specific: a particular tread pattern, a particular size. On February 4th, 2010, the Ontario Provincial Police set up a roadblock near Jessica's home. Their plan was to stop every vehicle that passed, check every set of tires, and ask every driver the same questions. It was a fishing expedition, a long shot, 1,000 to 1 chance. Within 3 minutes, a Nissan Pathfinder approached the checkpoint. The Nissan Pathfinder was one of the 3 vehicle types the experts had identified. Its tires were Toyo Country HTs. The driver was Colonel Russell Williams, the base commander at CFB Trenton. He was calm, cooperative, professional. He told the officers he often drove that road. He said he did not know Jessica Lloyd. The officers let him go, but they did not believe him. They followed him to Ottawa. They watched him stop at a car wash and vacuum his vehicle. They watched him leave, and then they impounded the garbage can and searched it for evidence. On February 7th, 2010, Russell Williams was asked to come to an Ottawa police station for an interview. He agreed. He believed he was helping with an investigation. He walked into the station at 3 p.m. Across the table from him was Detective Sergeant Jim Smythe of the Ontario Provincial Police, a behavioural specialist, one of the best interrogators in the country. Smythe had the tyre tracks. He had the boot prints. He had Williams' Nissan Pathfinder. And he had a very good idea of who he was talking to. What followed was one of the most remarkable interrogations in Canadian criminal history. Smythe did not shout. He did not threaten. He built rapport, slowly, carefully, almost gently. He presented the evidence piece by piece. He allowed Williams to talk himself into corners. He allowed the silence to do the work. And then, at 7:45 p.m., 4.5 hours after he had walked into the station, Russell Williams began to confess. The interrogation lasted 10.5 hours. It was recorded in full. The video would later be played in court, and it remains one of the most chilling documents in the annals of Canadian crime. Not because of what Williams says, but because of how he says it. He confesses the way he might deliver a briefing. He is lucid, organized, cooperative. He asks, at one point, about his military pension. He expresses concern about the impact on his wife. He says he wants to plead guilty to minimize the legal bills. He speaks about raping and murdering 2 women with the same tone he might use to describe a flight plan. Smith asks him whether he would have killed again. Williams pauses. "It's a difficult question to answer," he says. "I would likely have continued breaking into people's homes, but I hope I wouldn't have attacked anyone else." He tells Smith where to find the evidence. Inside his Ottawa home, hidden in the ceiling of the garage, meticulously organized. Thousands of photographs, hours of video footage. The underwear he had stolen from 48 homes. Each piece catalogued, each piece photographed, each piece preserved. He had been keeping a record. He had been building an archive. He had wanted to be able to return to his crimes, to look at them, to relive them, whenever he chose. He drew an X on a map where he had left Jessica Lloyd's body. Police found her the next morning, February 8, 2010, in a field on Carey Road in Tweed, bound with duct tape. The colonel who had flown the Queen, who had commanded the base where heroes came home, who had written condolence letters to the families of the fallen. That man was a serial rapist and murderer who had been living a double life so complete, so compartmentalized, that even his wife of 18 years had seen nothing, or nothing she would later admit to having seen. Russell Williams's descent began on September 9, 2007, more than 2 years before his arrest. On that night, he entered the Tweed home of a 12-year-old girl, walked into her bedroom while she slept, stripped naked, and stole a single pair of black underwear. He left a message on her computer telling her to be careful about what she posted online. A predator's note disguised as concern. From that first break-in, he escalated with terrifying consistency. Over the next 26 months, he broke into 48 homes in and around Tweed, Belleville, and Orleans, Ontario. 82 separate break-ins and attempted break-ins in total. He targeted women and girls. He took their underwear. He wore it. He photographed himself wearing it. Sometimes posing in the stolen underwear, sometimes wearing parts of his Canadian Forces uniform alongside it. The military and the predator merged into a single image. He kept detailed records. He logged police reports of his own crimes, tracking what the authorities knew, what they were investigating, how close they were to finding him. He was not just a serial offender. He tracked police activities surrounding his crimes and used careful planning to stay ahead of investigators, using his military training to stay one step ahead. In September 2009, the break-ins became something worse. Williams attacked 2 women in Tweed, both in the same month. He bound them. He photographed them. He sexually assaulted them. One of them, his neighbor, Laurie Massicott, woke to a blow to the head while she was asleep in her own home. Williams spent more than 2 hours with her. He blindfolded her. He assaulted her. At one point, he left the room to get her painkillers for the headache he had caused. And then he went home, went to bed, and went to work the next day as though nothing had happened. 2 months later, he killed Marie-France Comeau. 2 months after that, he killed Jessica Lloyd. The escalation was not subtle. It was a line on a graph, trending upward with mathematical precision. Break-ins became break-ins with contact. Contact became sexual assault. Sexual assault became rape and murder. And the man who was doing all of it was rising through the ranks of the Canadian military at the same speed, promoted, decorated, entrusted with more and more power, while the evidence of his crimes filled the ceiling of his garage. The double life of Russell Williams is not simply a story of hidden crimes. It is a story of compartmentalization so extreme that it defies understanding. On January 17, 2010, less than 2 weeks before he abducted and murdered Jessica Lloyd, Williams stood beside the Chief of the Defense Staff, General Walter Natinchik, and Defense Minister Peter MacKay at a public event at CFB Trenton. Photographs from that day show Williams in full dress uniform, medals on his chest, looking directly into the camera with the confidence of a man at the peak of his career. He was 46 years old. He was the base commander. He was untouchable. At that moment, Marie-France Comeau had been dead for 7 weeks. Her body had been found. Her funeral had been held. Her father had received and read the condolence letter Williams had written him. A letter from a base commander to a grieving military veteran, expressing sorrow for a loss that the letter's author had caused. Williams had met Comeau on a military flight. He did not know her personally, but as base commander, he had access to her personnel file and her work schedule. Investigators later determined that he had access both before the murder. He had used the tools of his command, the information systems, the authority, the access, to plan a murder. And then, after he had suffocated her with duct tape and photographed her body and cleaned her blood off the floor with bleach, he had gone to Ottawa for a meeting. He had sat in a conference room. He had participated in discussions. He had been the colonel again, not the killer, not the rapist, not the man who crouched in basements holding a flashlight and a roll of tape. The colonel. The people who worked with him, who served under him, who promoted him. None of them saw it, or none of them admitted to seeing it. The question of what Mary Elizabeth Harriman, his wife of 18 years, knew or did not know has never been definitively answered. The underwear was in their home. The photographs were in their home. But she was never charged, and the investigation did not conclude that she had been complicit. The man who flew the Queen, the man who received the coffins of fallen soldiers, the man who wrote condolence letters to grieving families, and the man who stole underwear from children, who raped his neighbor, who videotaped himself torturing and killing 2 women. These were not 2 different men. They were the same man. And he moved between his 2 lives with a fluidity that was, in its own way, more disturbing than the crimes themselves, because it meant that the compartmentalization was total, that the monster and the colonel were not in conflict, that they coexisted without friction, that Russell Williams had found a way to be both and sleep at night. On October 18, 2010, Russell Williams appeared before the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in Belleville. He pleaded guilty to all 88 charges: 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of sexual assault, 2 counts of forcible confinement, and 82 counts of breaking and entering. He did not contest a single charge. He did not offer a defense. He did not make a statement of remorse that anyone found convincing. He stood in a dark suit, his uniform stripped, his medals gone, his rank already revoked, and said the word guilty 88 times, in a voice that was calm and clear and utterly empty. The Crown then presented the agreed statement of facts. It took 2 days. The evidence included thousands of photographs Williams had taken, himself, his victims, the crime scenes. It included the videos of the rapes and murders. It included the testimony of the surviving victims. It included the last words of the women who did not survive. When Crown Attorney Lee Burgess described what Williams had done to Jessica Lloyd, how she had pleaded for her life, how she had asked him to tell her mother she loved her, how he had killed her anyway, Burgess himself struggled to speak. His voice broke. In the gallery, Jessica's mother Roxanne and her brother Andy wept openly. Some family members left the courtroom rather than hear the details of what had been done to their loved ones. Marie-France Comeau's father sat through both days. He listened to the description of how his daughter had been beaten, bound, raped, and suffocated. He listened to her last words. "I want to live so badly. Give me a chance. I'll be so good. Please." He listened, and he did not leave. When the facts were finished, Judge Robert F. Scott formally convicted Williams on all counts. On October 21, 2010, Judge Robert F. Scott sentenced Russell Williams to 2 concurrent terms of life imprisonment for the first-degree murders of Marie-France Comeau and Jessica Lloyd, with no possibility of parole for 25 years. He also received additional sentences for the sexual assaults, the forcible confinements, and each of the 82 breaking and entering charges. Because Williams was convicted of multiple murders, he is not eligible for early parole under Canada's faint hope clause. He will serve at least 25 years until he is 71 years old, before he can even apply for release. The Canadian Forces acted swiftly. Williams was stripped of his commission, his rank, his awards, and his medals, all by order of the Governor-General, on the recommendation of the Chief of the Defence Staff. His uniform, his documents, and his military equipment were destroyed. His biography was removed from the Department of National Defence website. His name was erased from the institution he had served and disgraced for 23 years. In April 2010, while awaiting trial at the Quint Detention Centre in Napanee, Ontario, Williams attempted suicide by wedging a stuffed cardboard toilet paper roll down his throat. He was placed on suicide watch. Later that month, he began a hunger strike. The man who had commanded a military base, who had flown heads of state, who had been entrusted with the most solemn responsibilities of the Canadian Forces, was now being watched around the clock to prevent him from taking his own life in a prison cell. He is currently incarcerated at Port Cartier Institution in Quebec, a maximum security federal penitentiary. His wife, Mary Elizabeth Harriman, divorced him in 2014. She had stood by him through the trial, but the marriage did not survive the aftermath, and his name, Russell Williams, has joined the list of Canada's most reviled criminals, mentioned alongside Paul Bernardo and Robert Picton, a warning about what can hide behind a uniform, a rank, a handshake, a smile. The story of Russell Williams is often told through his crimes, through the numbers, the photographs, the confession. But the center of the case is not the man who committed the crimes. The center is the people he harmed. Laurie Massicott was Williams' neighbor in Tweed. On September 30th, 2009, she woke in her own home to a blow to the head. Williams spent more than 2 hours in her house. He blindfolded her. He assaulted her. He photographed her. And then he left. Massicott later successfully applied to have the publication ban on her identity lifted. She wanted to be able to speak publicly, to say what had happened to her, to be heard, to not be silenced by the legal system that was supposed to protect her. She told reporters that the assault was not the end of her ordeal. She said that when police arrived, they left her tied up for hours while they investigated. that the system designed to help her had re-traumatized her instead. She filed a $7 million lawsuit against Williams, his wife, and the province of Ontario. The lawsuit was settled in 2016 for an undisclosed amount. The settlement, like all settlements of its kind, admits no fault. It offers no apology. It is a transaction, money in exchange for the dropping of a claim. It is not justice. It is the closest thing the legal system has to offer. The second Tweed survivor, the woman assaulted on September 17, 2009, has kept her name protected. Her testimony is part of the sealed record, and the families of the dead, Roxanne Lloyd, Jessica's mother, who attended every day of the trial, who left the courtroom when the details of her daughter's death were read aloud, who has spent every day since January 28, 2010, living with the knowledge of what the last hours of her daughter's life were like. Andy Lloyd, Jessica's brother, who walked out of the same courtroom rather than hear the words his sister said to the man who killed her. Marie-France Comeau's father, a military veteran, received a letter from his daughter's commanding officer after her death. The letter expressed sorrow. The letter offered condolences. The letter was signed by Russell Williams. It is a detail so cruel that it approaches the incomprehensible. A killer reaching out to the family of his victim, wearing the mask of the man they trusted, offering comfort with the same hands that had held the duct tape. The question that haunts the Russell Williams case is not why he did it. The question is how he got away with it for so long. Williams was not a master criminal. He made mistakes. Neighbors saw his SUV parked outside Jessica Lloyd's house for hours. 3 witnesses, 3 separate sightings, and no one called the police until after she was missing. He drove through a roadblock in the vehicle that matched the tire tracks at the crime scene. He kept thousands of photographs and hours of video footage in his own home. Evidence so voluminous that it took investigators weeks to catalogue it all. And yet, for more than 2 years, no one caught him. No one suspected him. No one looked at the base commander of CFB Trenton, the man who had flown the Queen, who had been promoted again and again, who was trusted with the most sensitive responsibilities in the Canadian military, and thought, this man is a predator. The compartmentalization was the weapon. Williams was not hiding in the shadows. He was hiding in plain sight, behind a uniform, behind a rank, behind the respect that his position commanded. When an officer at a roadblock saw his face, she saw a colonel. When his subordinates interacted with him, they saw a commander. When his wife came home to a house that hid evidence of 82 break-ins in the ceiling of the garage, she saw her husband. Investigators concluded that Williams' position gave him access, mobility, and opportunities that helped him conceal his crimes. It gave him access to information, to Comeau's personnel file, her work schedule. It gave him mobility, flights to California the morning after a murder. It gave him cover, the assumption held by everyone who encountered him, that a man of his rank could not possibly be a rapist and a killer. And the question of whether he would have been caught if he had not driven his Nissan Pathfinder through that roadblock on February 4th, 2010, 3 minutes into an operation that was a long shot, a fishing expedition, 1,000-to-1 chance, is not answerable. The roadblock caught him. The tire evidence became the breakthrough that identified him. And without that almost impossible coincidence, he might still be free. Russell Williams was 46 years old when he was arrested. He had spent 23 years building a career that was, by any external measure, exemplary. He had flown the most powerful people in the world. He had commanded the largest air base in the country. He had been trusted, respected, admired, the kind of officer that the Canadian forces held up as a model. And he threw all of it away, not in a moment of passion, not in a single catastrophic decision, but over the course of more than 2 years, in a slow and deliberate escalation that began with a 12-year-old girl's underwear drawer and ended with the bodies of 2 women in the brush and the snow. Marie-France Comeau was 37. Jessica Lloyd was 27. Williams's own confession and recordings showed that control, documentation, and domination were central to the crimes he committed against them. And then he wanted to keep the record of what he had done, to return to it, to relive it, to archive it like a collection. He has never explained himself in any way that satisfies. He confessed, but he did not illuminate. He pleaded guilty, but he did not repent. He told Jim Smythe in the interrogation room that he hoped he would not have attacked anyone else. And then he paused and said he could not be sure. Even he did not believe his own denials. The military destroyed his uniform and his medals. His wife divorced him. His name has become synonymous with a kind of evil that is particularly disturbing because it wore a face that everyone trusted. He will be 71 years old before he is eligible for parole. He may never be released. And the families, the Lloyds, the Comeaus, the women whose names are protected by publication bans, the dozens of victims whose underwear he stole and whose homes he violated, are left with a piece of this that can never be resolved. The photographs still exist in an evidence locker. The videos still exist. The record of what Russell Williams did to his victims is preserved forever, because he wanted it preserved forever. He wanted to be able to look at it. And now, the only people who look at it are the parole board members who will decide in 2035 whether the man in the photographs can ever be allowed to walk free. The house in Brighton is quiet. The cottage on Cozy Cove Lane has been sold. The field on Carey Road is just a field. And somewhere in a maximum security prison in Quebec, a former colonel sits in a cell, his uniform ashes, his medals stripped away, his name a curse. A man who had everything and chose to become nothing. He had been good, Marie-France Comeau said. She did not deserve to die. She was right. And sometimes, in cases like this, that is all that remains. The truth of what the victims said, and the fact that no one was able to save them.